Greetings friends. Wisdom and health to you. Today in the Summary Club we continue to analyze why our children, and in general almost all modern children with each generation, are worse and worse in school. Why, in spite of all the modern technology and scientific achievements, children in ordinary schools are on average less and less literate, less and less memorable, and less eager to learn. What is the real reason? Is it an accident, a problem of ill-conceived modern education and low teachers' salaries, or is it a conspiracy aimed at reducing the awareness and intelligence of the new generations? That is, the new cogs of the great state system, where educated and intelligent people are hardly needed in such numbers. This is what we will try to look into today, and at the same time we will continue our short series of brief reviews of useful lectures by one of the most famous scholars in the field of education. Lyudmila Yasyukova, PhD in psychology, head of the Laboratory of Social Psychology at St. Petersburg State University and the Center for Ability Diagnostics and Development. All in all, Lyudmila is one of the most renowned experts, studying what a school could be and should be so that our children would become truly conscious and wise members of society. So we highly recommend watching her talks, or at least our short summary versions of her lectures for those who don't have enough free time. What are the difficulties of modern education? And so let's understand what is conceptual thinking and why children today have not formed this thinking, but to be honest, and some adults are not a little better with it. Lyudmila Yasyukova herself says that from her own experience, when you try to understand the modern educational system, only the phrase comes to mind, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." Because the educational system is constantly being improved, but literacy declines every year. It has already come to the point that the teachers themselves at school demonstrate illiteracy. But there is an answer, all because science used to be a priority. The educational system was also based on a scientific system. All lessons, whether in the exact sciences such as mathematics, physics, chemistry, or those that could be classified as humanities, were taught so that children at school needed to summarize, analyze, and organize information independently. Now the education system is built on the premise that children should be as comfortable and easy as possible within the walls of the school. Well, science, it is difficult, and therefore it has no place within the walls of the school. That is why, apparently, education officials are trying their best to reduce the educational burden on the immature minds of children. The problem is not even that school always gives outdated knowledge. This has been, is, and probably always will be the case. After all, by the time scientific data is formed into a system, generalized, systematized, and reached the children, it has already become outdated. What then is the point of school education if the curriculum is no longer relevant? And the point is precisely to teach children to think and form their conceptual thinking. And this is achieved primarily through the study of science. What is conceptual thinking? And so why is conceptual thinking best formed in the study of science? Because all knowledge is formed on the basis of the conceptual principle. And the basis of any science is just some scientific data, formed in the form of a pyramid on the level of complexity. That is, the study of science proceeds from simpler understandings to more complex, specific knowledge. Children at the preschool age don't need conceptual thinking yet, they need figurative thinking. But when a child begins to study science, conceptual thinking begins to form because children have to process and systematize the information that is taught at school. This is why it's so important that education be built on a more rigorous and structured system. School children in junior high school need to build a foundation to form their thought processes in such a way as to develop their intuition, logic, and ability to analyze. Because sciences cannot be learned once and for all, they must rather be understood. And if you start studying the sciences in the first grade, then conceptual thinking is laid down and formed as a basic. The child, studying science, learns the principle on which all natural processes are built. This is called social intelligence. And if a person has already formed conceptual thinking, then such a person easily solves any problem in life because such a person understands the laws of the world around him. Whether it is economic processes or interpersonal relationships. Take natural history as an example. Children were previously given a systematic knowledge of nature, plants, and animals, even to the point of showing it schematically. But now there is no more natural history, now there is some kind of program called the world around us. This is some general information with stories about nothing. And about the him, and the clouds, and strange practice-oriented exercises. For example, children are given a task to get out of the winter forest. To do this, children are asked to follow the footsteps of animals. But by following the animal trails, no one has ever actually made it out of the woods. This is a meaningless task, which, naturally, the child will immediately forget. Earlier, the foundations of conceptual thinking were laid at the beginning, and then in the 5th grade botany, strict systematization, 6th to 7th grade zoology, 8th grade anatomy, 9th grade biology, which formed a stable conceptual thinking.
Subscribe to the Summary Club and watch short versions of the most popular and useful videos every day.
Now, elementary school does not give any coherent system of knowledge. In the 5th grade, they start to study natural history. This is general knowledge about nature. In the 6th grade, they mix botany and zoology. And by the way, if before physics was taught from the 4th grade, now it has been moved to the 6th grade, and the subject begins with stories about nature, space and planets. But there are no problems at all with which classical physics used to begin. Actually, our children receive bases of conceptual thinking only in specialized physics mathematics schools. Everyone else is just busy cramming to prepare for the use template tests. And if conceptual thinking is not formed, then the child is not able to solve problems. Even the multiplication table cannot be learned without conceptual thinking. After all, children do not understand how to apply this table in practice. As a result, children leave elementary school not only unable to solve complex problems, but not even able to count properly at all. Conceptual thinking is based on an intuitive understanding of the essence of the material being presented. If intuition is developed, when a child reads a text, he or she immediately understands the main points to be highlighted. If there is no intuitive component, then children remember something there just in fragments, without grasping the overall essence. As an example, the children and their teacher were reviewing the fable The Dragonfly and the Ant. By the end of the lesson, the teacher asked the children what conclusions they drew from the material. Half the class screamed that they felt sorry for the dragonfly. This means that if children do not develop conceptual thinking, they stop developing emotionally a little earlier. Here they feel sorry for the dragonfly, but they just haven't heard the rest and haven't made any potentially useful conclusions for their future lives. The second component of conceptual thinking is logic. That is, the ability to distinguish cause and effect connections. A child can prove something, can predict, understands what follows what. If a child has formed logical thinking, he understands the meaning of rules and formulas. If logical thinking is not formed, the child learns the rules and keeps making mistakes. That is, he doesn't know how to apply these rules in practice. It is the same with formulas. It is a standard situation today in middle and high school, when all the formulas are in front of your eyes and the children cannot solve the problem. Moreover, if children do not have logical thinking, it is very difficult for them to follow what the teacher tells them. Conceptual thinking is not turned on, and figurative thinking allows them to remember only some scattered fragments from the overall narrative. And the third basis for effective thinking is the ability to systematize and summarize information. That is, the ability to build logical structures and gives a holistic view of science. Why is it so important to develop conceptual thinking? Here is an example of how conceptual and simpler pre-conceptual thinking works. Children are given a choice of several pictures of a bunny, squirrel, hedgehog, and dog and asked to find the extra animal. Unfortunately, children often think that the hedgehog is superfluous because he is the only one with needles. There seems to be logic in this, but there is no conceptual thinking. After all, the dog is superfluous here because there is a division between wild and domestic animals. This is the intuitive component of conceptual thinking. Why intuitive? Because sometimes we can't explain why, but we get it right. And when logic comes into play, then we can explain. But if people are not engaged in science, research and similar intellectual activities, but are engaged in some routine work, then conceptual thinking in them most often does not stand out and doesn't form even to the necessary minimum. Often adults are not even aware that their conceptual thinking is not fully formed. Such people think that they understand everything correctly and make the right decisions. And if something does not work out, it is someone else's fault, but not the person himself. Conceptual thinking can be formed or improved by anyone at any age. But to do this, you need to work purposefully on developing a systematic perception. But if a person can easily solve any problem in math or physics, then most often he will solve life problems with the same ease. It turns out that it is easier for people who were educated in schools with a physics and mathematics background to realize their potential in almost any field of activity. It is easier for such people to navigate in an ever-changing world because they have more developed conceptual thinking. Humanitarians, on the other hand, often have a limited range of activities and opportunities for self-actualization. But, unfortunately, the old curricula that developed the basics of conceptual thinking in children are stigmatized and replaced, considering them not modern. Hence the difficulties first in children's learning, and then in how an adult can be realized in life, and at least in some more or less intellectual profession. All in all, here is a topic for you to think about today, and next time together with Lyudmila Yasyukova, we will finally try to uncover the main question: what can be done about it, and how after all to improve literacy and intelligence on our children in practice. And of course, very soon you can expect a selection of tips, insights and short versions and other interesting videos, books, as well as tips of many other prominent personalities of the past and the present on our channel and website. And friend, don't forget to subscribe to the Summary Club for becoming more successful, educated, kinder and wiser every day. Save hundreds of hours and dollars spending on boring regular education. Feel free to write your opinions and questions about each video. We read all the comments. In addition, go to our official website where you can find reading materials or watch other videos on channel and links in the description. All the best.